Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and today we're going to go to former Soviet countries because we are in places where I want to talk to men who have left Russia because they were in the army and they didn't want to go to Ukraine to kill Ukrainians, or else they were not in the army and they were afraid they were going to be drafted or mobilized and sent to Ukraine, and they didn't want to do that. So the plight of these folks is quite unpleasant. Having it, as I understand it, it's easy for them to get into countries that are not in Russia anymore, but that are formerly part of the Soviet Union because they can use their internal passports to go to those countries. But then, if they want to go to other countries, say Europe or North America or most of the other industrialized countries, even in Asia, they have difficulty getting papers and going to settle where they might want to live permanently. And I am very concerned about that. I think it's a tragedy that they are not being welcomed, because I think we should meet them with garlands of flowers and say, "Hooray for you for refusing to participate in this war." So I've invited some friends here who know about that situation. In Tbilisi, Georgia, is Mikhail Elez Barashvili, who is a Quaker who works helping especially deserters and conscientious objectors to because they have difficulty, and but he's very familiar with their situation, and he has invited to join him today one of these men who left Russia, Ivan. And Ivan, I don't know your surname, or will somebody introduce Ivan properly? I know.
Иван Замятин. Замятин.
Okay, thank you. Uh, Now, and in Croatia, in Vukovar, Croatia, is Charles David Tauber, whom I know because he's very frequently attends our global town hall meetings. He is a psychiatrist who's been living in Croatia for 30 some years, doing work with the victims of trauma, people who suffered in war, and who he believes really, unless they get handle their trauma, that this kind of tragedy will be perpetuated from one generation to another. So he's doing wonderful work in Croatia, and as a Quaker, he is in touch with Misha Mikhail, and they talk to each other every week. So they're working together, and he knows some of the people, the men who are in this situation. And then in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, is my good friend Konstantin Samoilov, who is also a Russian in the same situation. But Konstantin is a man of extraordinary resourcefulness. And wherever he goes, he not only can land on his feet like a cat, but he can save lots of other folks around him who have the same problem. He is an altruistic man who looks after other people very beautifully. I should also introduce my friend Jill Carr Harris, who is a very dear friend and very probably my successor in running this organization, Project Save the World. And Jill is a Canadian who's been living in India for the last 40 years, doing Gandhian humanitarian and peace building work. And she is also very familiar with the situation in Georgia because her family is Georgian. And they left Georgia many years ago, but she has ties there and she goes frequently. And I think what we can do is just sort of go around, and each of you can, when I call on you, you can tell me what you know about what your situation is and that of other people facing the same problems. Okay. So, Charles, why do you know anything whatever about this topic?
Okay, for a number of reasons. First of all, in the 1970s, I refused to register for conscription in America. And luckily, I wasn't jailed, but I was in that situation. My family, they were Jewish Ukrainian. And although I didn't grow up with much of the religion, through my Quaker connections, I came in contact with Misha, and I've been involved in the peace and environmental movements since the late 1960s.
Charles, are there lots of people in Vukovar who are coming out of Russia to escape?
Not only Russia, out of Ukraine. Vukovar is a very multi-ethnic place. There are some 25 different ethnicities in this city. This is an 8,000-year-old city. And there's a large Ukrainian community. People come in, people are smuggled on their way from various places to the European Union. Croatia is now a part of the European Union, and so this is a kind of an entry point.
And you're in touch with some of these deserters now, is that right?
Yes, and I won't say how because it might endanger some people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you work with Misha. So let's go to Misha now. And Misha, what's the deal? How do you guys work together as Quakers?
So I met Charles some years back, and I attended his program. He was my tutor on psychology, and I attended his program on how to become barefoot therapist and provide the primary psychological assistance to refugees and traumatized other groups of traumatized people. And when a Russian invasion started against Ukraine, some Russian citizens came to Georgia and Armenia, to South Caucasus. And among them, there were not only political migrants or just people who didn't like the dictatorship regime which rules Russia, but there were also conscientious objectors and draft evaders and a small number of deserters from the army. And together with Charles, we started a psychological assistance course to help them. And it's a course which is organized by Charles, and I translate it when a group of people who are in similar situation talk about their problems, ask for advice, and we provide them psychological relief, advices.
So if I'm hearing you, you were trained by Charles to be what I love this
Yes.
title, a barefoot therapist, right? I love that.
Yes, indeed.
And you actually do that with these Russian men. I guess they're mostly men. Is that right? In
Yes.
Tbilisi?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We do it online. So I would say majority of them not in Tbilisi. Majority of those people are in Armenia because it's easier for them to get to Armenia. They don't need an international passport to get to Armenia and to Georgia. To get to Georgia, they need international passport. But some of them are here. Some majority are in Armenia. So we provide that type of psychological assistance to them together with Charles.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, even before the invasion of Ukraine, there were a number of Russians who had come to Georgia for other reasons, such as to set up businesses or something of that kind. So am I correct in believing that there are, in a way, two separate populations of Russian immigrants to Georgia, those who have been there a while and who had other reasons for coming, and then the newcomers are predominantly men who have either escaped, deserted the Russian army, or fled to avoid being mobilized and sent into to fight in Ukraine. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's fair, but I would detailize it if you allow me.
Mhm.
So before war started, there were some Russian expats who lived in Georgia, who for different reasons left their country. Some of them just didn't like the political regime. Some of them didn't like the cold there. Some of them just decided to start some small businesses in Georgia. And then after invasion in Ukraine, and especially after the mobilization started in Russia in September 2022, thousands and thousands of Russian citizens came to Georgia. And most of them used to be those people who got scared of mobilization. So I wouldn't say that all of them are conscientious objectors or all of them draft evaders, but there were many people who decided to leave country due to the panic. They thought, if my cousin or my friend received the draft to serve in the army, probably next week I will receive that. I should better avoid it, and I better escape from the country.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't say that only men came. Very often, females, ladies also came to Georgia. And truly talking, sometimes that were your friends or family members of those men. Sometimes they also decided to leave the country because they disagreed with dictatorship regime which runs Russia, and they also came with them. And number of deserters was very low, very small in Georgia. I would say, in compare with all of those thousands of people who came after mobilization started in Russia in September 2022. Regarding statistic, from September 2022 till approximately till April 2023, approximately 500,000 of Russian citizens crossed the border with Georgia and came to Georgia. But then slowly they left the country and went to other countries.
Mhm.
So I hope I managed to detailize this issue.
That's good to know that they are, in general, able to move to other countries if they want to, because that's the concern that I have, is that we're not being very open with admitting people. But now, in the last few months, there has been a change of government in Georgia, and the previous governments have all been very oriented toward Europe, wanting to become part of Europe, and definitely oriented favorably toward European countries, EU and so on. But most recently, the current regime, the government run by the Georgian Dream Party, is very favorable to Russia. Now, I would like to know whether or not there's a difference between the two categories of Russians living in Georgia, those who came earlier to set up businesses or for whatever other reasons, and those who came because of their opposition to being party to the war. Is it fair to say that there's a gap between the politics? Because in previous forums that I've hosted, some of the speakers implied that there might be some support from some Russians for the Georgian Dream regime, the new government. And I have the impression that if that's true, it would only be from those Russians who came before the invasion of Ukraine. Is that a reasonable characterization of the situation, Misha?
It's a very good question, but truly talking, it's very difficult to answer that question. Majority of those ones who came after the war started in Ukraine, they are against Putin and they try to be kind of neutral here in Georgia and not to be involved in any political issues in the country. Those Russians who came to Georgia before, I wouldn't say there were too many of them. And in my opinion, they just didn't care about any political situation in Georgia. They just came on their personal businesses and other stuff. So, and truly talking, I don't know how they can support the Georgian dream. Maybe only financially, because otherwise, what they can do. But I don't know such a Russians who used to support Georgian dream.
Well,
At
I'm
least
going to say I stand corrected that from what I've been hearing you and some of the others say, it would be a distortion to imply that any sizable number of Russians in Georgia were very favorable to Russia now. And I'm going to leave it at that unless you think that we don't need to pursue the subject anymore, but I just wanted to be clear in my own mind about how to understand the changes going on in Georgia and the role that the Russians there have. So if maybe we should move on and talk to Ivan, how he came to be in Tbilisi now, and how you are helping him if that's what you're doing. Okay.
Yes. So I met Ivan in 2022 through my job. And actually our office was next to his door, to his apartment. And Ivan came to Georgia because he disagreed with the dictatorship regime that runs Russia, and also because he feared to be conscripted in the army and he didn't want to serve in the army and kill other peoples. That are the reasons why he came to Georgia. And now I will ask him to tell his story on his own.
We met with Misha in 2022. I came to Georgia in the spring of 2022, and because I was disagree with this war, with this politic of Putin's regime, and I received a color paper, right? Military color paper. So and I've got a military ID. So I should go to army and so on, and I don't want to kill someone and to serve in military. It's not for me. So when I came to Georgia, I joined to several volunteers projects, and I volunteer for Ukrainian refugees here in Georgia. And with Misha, I worked with Misha with their NGOs, Act for Transformation.
Do you expect to stay in Georgia, or do you have other hopes to go on to any other place or go back to Russia?
Sorry.
Хочешь в Грузии еще оставаться?
It's a good question, because the Georgian Dream, they accept several laws so our volunteer center, we closed it, and many others they had to close our centers. So we can continue to work, but with these laws, we have no ability to continue because we should pass all personal data of our donators. So it's
Beneficiaries
unacceptable.
and donors.
Mhm.
Donors, right. Yeah. And it's
My understanding is that this is a law that certainly Russia had, and that Georgia may be making a similar law that any Russian non-governmental organization, a peace organization, or even any charitable organization, if you receive money from foreign countries, you have to say that you're a foreign agent, which means
it
that
is,
you're really
yeah.
a spy. And people
Mhm.
don't want to say that, but that is required. And that's certainly the law in Russia, and it has been a real problem for people who are doing charitable humanitarian work or peace work. Is that the same law now in Russia, in Georgia? And that affects you, I presume, right?
It's the same, yes, right.
Mm-hmm.
So we should pass to government all data of our donors, and many of them are from Russia. So we can't.
Ivan was working in an organization Choose to Help, which was established by Russian escapees together with Ukrainian refugees to help Ukrainian refugees. And they have stopped working due to the new law, new legislation, that foreign agent law. And regarding that law, they should provide all information about beneficiaries and all information about donors and get a permission to from the government to do their work if they get any grant. And that is impossible actually, because most of the donors, they don't want others to know that they are helping the Ukrainian refugees.
Mm-hmm. Understandably. So does this mean, Ivan, that you may have to leave Georgia, or that you will have to find some other kind of job, paid work?
I was a volunteer, so it wasn't a job. I do it for. I cannot to do it because I want to do something to help Ukrainians, to help all the people. So it wasn't a job. It was my it was my mission. I had to do it. I want to do something to. I can't stop the war, but I had to do something,
Yes.
and so I joined to this whole volunteers project. And about staying in Georgia, I'm not feeling Georgia. So yes, I would like to move some other country, and I'm searching ways to leave Georgia. Yes.
Where would you like to go, if you don't mind answering that? And will it be easy for you to get papers to move to that other country?
I think in Europe.
Is it easy for you to go to Europe? Or will
Not, no, it's not easy. It's going harder and harder to get permissions, to get papers. Yes,
Mhm.
but if you're Russian oligarch, if you're Putin's oligarch, you will receive all papers. You will be fine. In Europe, you can fly on your jet any country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Meta, they don't even let us as visitors, okay? They, let alone immigrating to Europe, they don't want to see us as visitors. If we are living outside Russia, if we are, up in the air in terms of status and so forth, if we're against the war, volunteering, doing activism, no, Europeans, as well as Americans and the Canadians as well, you know that quite well.
I know that, and I think maybe Ivan, I'll maybe come back to you later about that. But first, I want to know, you would like to move to Europe, and you're not able to do that. That is what I hope we can make people aware of. That it seems to me to be very unfair that the people who are doing the most, the people like you, you're courageous in refusing to go to war and to oppose what the policies of Russia are. And we should be very, we should admire you very much for that and welcome you to our countries, whatever country we're in. So I really hope we can make some impact on that. And let's move on. And Konstantin, you've already said a little bit. Tell me about your own situation and those of other people that you know through your breakfast club.
Okay, first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to Mikhail and Charles for your work, because I know exactly what you're doing, and I'm there myself. Okay, I'm a refugee. I escaped Russia. I had 36 hours to leave, and I moved to Uzbekistan. Basically, it was like leaving your life behind abruptly in a matter of hours and stepping into a new life, which was absolute darkness. And it's very traumatic, I should say. And it's just not just changing your life, but knowing that your country betrayed you. The government and the people betrayed you. They chewed you up and spat you out. And then they pretty much banned you from the country through their actions. Okay, and you sit there and you feeling totally defenseless. You feel basically alone in the world. And when someone comes in and comes by and reaches out his hand and says, "Look, there's someone who cares. You're not alone." This is incredible. Okay. I left Russia in September 2022. Well, actually, it was my second leave in Russia. The first time I left in March, and I spent 1 month in Uzbekistan, but then I couldn't manage, and I had to return. But pretty much me and my family, we made the decision to leave Russia on the 24th of February of 2022. It just took some time to get up and go.
That's the day. Sorry, that's the day when they invaded
Yes.
Ukraine.
Yes, yes. You see, I felt dismayed. I felt betrayed because I was defending Russian army for quite some time, and my live streams and in my in the media, everyone was saying, "Hey, Russia is going to attack," and in my head, it was impossible. I sincerely thought that Russia would never attack. And all those troops, there was just like flexing muscle, right next to the border, amassing them. And all of a sudden, Russia did attack. And then my world changed. Okay. I felt, I don't even want to remember that. Okay. And then on that morning, me and my wife, we looked at each other and we knew without words that we had to go. But we have 3 kids with us in Russia, and they're all going to school. And it's just not easy to get up and go. So to me, the magic kick in the butt was the mobilization. I left for good, and first of all, I couldn't take arms and go and kill Ukrainians. And then second, I was in danger for, my YouTube channel where I was speaking the truth. I had spoken the truth for 6 months prior, and I was fearing that they were going to use this mobilization excuse to basically get rid of me. Okay, so for a few days, I finished live streams with saying goodbye to everyone in case I would show up the next day. So anyway, to make the long story short, I left and I found myself broken, absolutely broken. And I noticed that there are so many people, tens of thousands of people in Tashkent, just like me, broken. And I was just wandering the streets of Tashkent for hours, listening to the music, because when you listen to music, your mind is occupied. Once the music stops, you start thinking, and it starts hurting. Okay, so, and then I decided to start getting same people in the same situation as I was in, started getting them together into a support group. And the first idea, I didn't know much about, support therapy, that I still don't know, I'm not professional, but my idea was getting people together at one table and just speaking of their experience. What we were going through was therapeutic, and it proved to be a success because I remember I was unsuccessful for a couple of weeks. No one. I started inviting everyone to show up for breakfast, and for 2 weeks I was having breakfast by myself. And then I started inviting. I started saying. I was thinking. I said, "Listen, I got to do something else, right?" And then I started offering to buy people food, to feed them, to buy them coffee, tea, and porridge, fried eggs, whatever. So breakfast on me. And then people started showing up bit by bit. And I remember 7 people showed up.
Mm.
It was a breakthrough. It was in October. And they're like in mid-40s, just like me. And everyone, the strangers, 7 strangers. And all of a sudden, everyone started talking simultaneously. And everyone was trying to unload what they were going through and feeling, how they fled Russia, what happened to them, why. And I remember there was just like so much stuff coming out of their mouths. And then I was feeling good because I was one of them, okay? And then that's how Tashkent Breakfast Club was born. We grew to over 1,000 people. We actually stopped taking people online because there are too many Kremlin trolls come, and only those who show up to have real breakfasts with us, we invite them to the community. Okay, but we quickly grew to about 1,000 people. They were about 40,000 people in Tashkent, like myself, who fled Russia, fled for different reasons.
Now,
And,
are there that many still there, or have
yes.
most of those people moved on to other countries?
They keep on coming. Tashkent, for a lot of people, Tashkent was a transit point. Everyone, well, not everyone, but many considered Tashkent just a place to catch breath, so to speak, and to move to a different country. And I remember I was advising people, because I knew at the time on different countries that were accepting Russians with easier immigration law. And I remember I was sitting at the table at the breakfast, and then people were just coming in and asking questions, where we should go. My wife is pregnant, so the options were Argentina. A lot of people went there because they had very easy legislation back then. But once they started getting influx of Russians, they changed it. Okay, they toughened it up. Then Sri Lanka, then Thailand. Thailand unfortunately changed as well because it got close to Russia. It signed extradition agreement with Russia and all of that. And it was like a live coordination of people coming in. A lot since then have left Uzbekistan, but many stayed.
The majority have left, or are you still in?
I have the numbers, Meta. About 20% since the end of 2022, since the mobilization, 20% have gone back to Russia for two different reasons. First of all, there were a lot of people who came acting on panic, okay? Just like Mikhail said, I think, right? So mentioned, or Ivan, I don't remember. So one of you mentioned that people were panicking and they were just trying to flee Russia. And majority of those, they were apolitical. So they were seeking their personal protection. And then after about 3 months, this wave of the active mobilization process in Russia, it slowed down. And then those people who came out of their personal safety, not caring about the war in Ukraine and all of that, they started going back. Because life in exile is very difficult, okay? And they didn't want to deal with it, okay? So when first opportunity came, they started going back.
Now, those are mostly the people who came out of panic and they found they didn't have any realistic reason to be afraid to go back. Is that
they found out that, okay, it's safe back in Russia now because my neighbors have not been mobilized, my relatives have not been, so I go, and then a lot of people left simultaneously, literally within 2 or 3 weeks. And a lot of jobs were left vacant. So it was easy to get a job, and the company started raising salaries to get people to work for them. Okay, so there were many opportunities in Russia, yes. That was a short spurt of economic activity because, well, imagine like 2 million men left. The jobs need to be filled, right? So those folks were going back to Russia. And then, of course, we kept in touch because I monitor Russia. That's my job, actually, to study it under the microscope. And then they were telling me how things were in Russia. Some of them are still in Russia. Some of them I lost touch with. But at first it was around 10% of those who had left. They returned, and now I estimate 20%. So then,
what about people who've gone to other countries? I know that many of them, as Ivan wants to go to Europe, and haven't been able to. So, do you have numbers about how many people have tried to go, and how many of them have succeeded in going?
I do. But before I get to that, let me tell you that there are two groups of Russians who have gone back to Russia. So there's majority of those who didn't feel it was unsafe for them to be in Russia. And then there was a second majority who cared about the war, who cared about what was going on, but they couldn't make it. Because not everyone is strong. Not everyone can land a new job and create, especially in your 40s, and I saw people in the 50s. It was difficult, and after they gave it a try for about 6-7 months, I started seeing people going back for economic reasons. They weren't making it. Not too many of those, from 5 to 10%, something like that. So those who have gone back to Russia. Now, those who have gone to other countries, about 30%. There are 3 target countries, or 3 target areas. First is the USA. Everyone wants to go to the USA. Land of opportunities, land of immigrants. At least it used to be. I don't know how it is now,
I was wondering whether the changing politics in the U.S. with the Trump administration and his closeness to Putin, whether that has changed the calculus of people trying to decide whether to go to the U.S. Does it?
Have not changed.
It
have not changed.
No.
No. I monitor U.S. laws because I run a nonprofit helping people to get there. So I monitor laws, change of laws, immigration laws every week. Trump speaks a lot, but he does very little. Okay, he hasn't changed anything in U.S. immigration except for he speaks of how he deports illegals, whatever. They call them illegals, but they're undocumented immigrants, really. In numbers, he has under his administration, they have been fewer deportations than under Biden, and Obama was the champion of the deportations. Okay, so Trump hasn't done anything. He's just creating this media storm and stirring up thoughts of people, American people, making them anti-immigrant. But that's taken an opposite effect because the polls show that more and more people now in America are leaning towards supporting immigration. But that's a different story. So everyone wanted to go to the USA. A lot of people wanted to go to Canada because Canada and the USA kind of have the same DNA, okay, or at least had the same DNA until recently. Okay. Then Europe, of course. A lot of people like it in Europe, traveled to Europe. I mean, most of us have been to Europe. European countries became very hostile right away towards Russians. Some countries have closed entry altogether. Poland, Norway, and it became extremely difficult to not just to immigrate there, to actually get a visitor's visa. I know 3 families. 2 families managed to go to Spain, and they have gotten permanent residence, but they had to go back to Russia and start the process from Russia. Okay, and another family went to Slovenia. And then they don't have permanent residency there as students there. Okay, so very few people came to Europe, were allowed to go to Europe, but a lot actually are willing to do so. And I've heard of a few cases, Australia, but it's such an exotic location. We don't know much about it, okay? People have gone to Sri Lanka, a lot have gone to Thailand, mostly those who have remote work. And they can work from anywhere. They choose tropical location and with like cheap living expenses. Quite a few people went to Argentina. We have a community there. Bolivia is a new hotspot that opened up for Russians, for anyone right now. I know a couple of people went to Bolivia. Well, that's Israel, Jewish. Obviously, they went to Israel. I'm going to meet one family and ask for their experience, pros and cons, and how they estimate their living in Israel and so forth. Anyway, so this is where they have gone, about 30%. Phenomena of Uzbekistan, it's one of the most friendly countries for Russians to live, because we don't need visas. We don't need to do visa run. We don't need visas, period, in Uzbekistan. A Russian citizen can come to Uzbekistan, no questions asked. They never turn anyone down. They never send them, like in Turkey, in Georgia. Oh yeah, Turkey's been a hot spot. Quite a few families moved to Turkey. So anyway, Uzbekistan, you can live there forever. You just have to be registered at a certain address where you rent, and that's it. As long as you don't break any laws, as long as you don't break any rules that the country lives by. And a lot of people liked it in Uzbekistan and Tashkent. The climate is perfect. Food is incredible. People are very friendly. Everyone speaks Russian, or understands at least. It's really hard to build a career because living standard is quite low. But if you have skills, and most of us in Tashkent Breakfast Club, and in general, those who left Russia are most of them with higher education, many of them with advanced degrees. They are courageous. They have good hearts. they have self-confidence, they're ready for new things, they're ready to adopt and evolve. And a lot of people ended up staying in Uzbekistan, but most work someplace else. Most have learned English and they landed jobs, in other countries. Well, some work in Uzbekistan. If you possess certain skills, then you qualify as expat. They hire you, pay you incredible amount of money, but you have to be really special for that. So this is how I estimate.
Konstantin,
Estimate.
what about Armenia?
Mhm.
I think there's quite a few Russians that have gone to Armenia, aren't there?
Yes,
I
of
thought
course,
it was,
Georgia, and Armenia. But the thing is, I was telling you about countries where people went after Uzbekistan,
Right.
moved on, and Armenia is just like Uzbekistan has been the transit point for many Russians. Armenia is very convenient because, like Uzbekistan, Armenians are very fond of Russians. They're friendly. They speak Russian, and as one thing, you don't have to have an external passport to enter Armenia. Even if you don't have it, you can always get there. And Armenians, from what I understand, they're leaning towards Europe and the USA now, and it's unlike in Georgia. The situation is going the other way. Okay, and there are. I have heard of the deportations, but not too many. Okay, so Armenia was Kazakhstan was number one location because again, you can travel to Kazakhstan without documents, and a lot of people have felt safe in Kazakhstan because if you are apolitical, if you don't talk about politics, if you don't speak up, then no one's gonna touch you in Kazakhstan. Okay. But if you are, and if Russia wants you, then there's an extradition treaty. There have been numerous cases of extraditions from Kazakhstan to Russia. Because, when we think of a location, we don't think how friendly people are there or how much money we can make or how well we can live there. Number one thing is, will they deport us from Russia if Russia demands? That's it. That's the deal breaker. Okay. Kazakhstan, yeah, deportations. Uzbekistan, there hasn't been any deportations yet. And basically Armenia, very few deportations, although there's a Russian military base, but it's going to change soon, I think. So basically answering your question.
okay, look, you've given a terrific overview of the situation because you seem to have a comparative, overview. I want to ask the other guys, Charles and Misha and Ivan, you will have each had some different angles on this. Compare what you know with what Konstantin says. Is there any qualification or amendment you would make to what he has reported based on your own experience? How does it fit what you have experienced?
Thank you very much, Konstantin, for this full report. And actually, situation in Georgia, in some way similar to Uzbekistan. In some way, it's a bit different. As you said, many Russians returned to Russia soon after the mobilization started. Same thing happened here. Many Russians, when they came here, they realized that Georgia is a more expensive country to live than Russia. You need to pay a rent, which is not cheap. You need to pay food, which is more expensive than in Russia. And also they realized that attitude to Russians in Georgia is not good. And it's understandable because 20% of our territories are occupied. And slowly, they started moving to other countries, and you named those countries, or going back to Russia. And regarding statistics, the last statistic which I read from that wave of Russians who came after the bloody invasion of Russia started in Ukraine. After that time, from that 500,000 of people who came here and other peoples who came to Georgia from Russia, there left only 70,000 people, 70,000 Russian citizens.
70,000 of what? You say like 270,000 or something came.
After the mobilization started in Russia, in 6 months after September 2022, 500,000 of Russian citizens came to Georgia within 6 months. And for 2025, the statistics say that there are 70,000 of them remaining in the country.
Oh.
And also, I would like to mention that there are several beneficiaries of our different projects, several of people with whom I stood in touch, who were here in Georgia, and they moved to Argentina. And also one family with whom I stay in touch, one is a deserter from Russian army, husband and his wife is a psychologist who lives with him. They stay in Armenia, and they also plan to move to Argentina. So going to Argentina is one of the ways to move to a safe country, and it's very important for Russian citizens to find a safe country. For example, many conscientious objectors and deserters, they complain that it's not safe to stay in Armenia because, first of all, Armenia has an agreement with Russia regarding extradition, and if a person wanted in Russia for deserting the army or for other political purposes, which usually considered in different ways in Russia and under different paragraphs of under different criminal paragraphs in Russia. So if you are wanted in Russia and you are on federal search, soon after that you will be also in search in Armenia, and Armenia can easily extradite you to Russia unless you have some lawyers there who will apply to local court and start the legal procedures to stop this extradition, to annulate the ban to leave Armenia and help you to leave the country. And actually, there are two organizations which do it in Armenia, which help Russian citizens to stop the extradition and leave the country. And with one we collaborate. It's called Helsinki Assembly.
I've tried to reach out to people in government in Canada and even elsewhere to try to promote, encourage them to be more hospitable to the Russians who want to land in the U.S. or Canada, and to Europe too. And some of them, including a very high-level former Russian who's been living in Switzerland for many years now, their response is, oh, well, but they might be spies. They might be, suppose the Russian government is really sending these people into Canada to be fifth column or something of that kind. And it always astonishes me, but I wonder, given the fact that you know these people, have you ever met anybody that you would say, yeah, that person might actually be trying to get into Canada to be a spy or something? Is there any validity whatever to that concern? Any of you know whether or not such an argument holds water? Any of them?
I disagree. I think it does not hold water, and I can explain why.
Okay.
I certainly have faced the KGB agents in Uzbekistan. I've seen their faces. They followed me. Once in a while they show themselves to intimidate me, and I caught them a couple times. So they were doing it covertly. So they're keeping tabs on me. I have been. They were trying to frame me a couple times. Nothing major, but these things that they offer you, and if you think that these people offer like out of the goodness of their hearts, and you fall for it, then they have something on you. It's like a hook. They hook you and they say, okay, now, boy, you play by our rules. You tell us what, we tell you what to do, or we tell you what not to do. Okay. So I've seen these people. They've made advances on me. I am very, very cautious of anyone who joins Tashkent Breakfast Club, and it was at first it was close to paranoia. Very, very scary. When you don't know the person, his intentions, you assume that he's out there. I'm used to this feeling. It doesn't kind of like bother me anymore, but it's there. Okay. Now, I think that people in the West are wrong about Russian spies trying to infiltrate their countries, because there are Russian spies, okay, and they are infiltrating every single country in the world. There's no question about that. I'm not naive, okay? KGB is probably the best secret police in the world, the most effective, I should say. People with brilliant minds, but rotten hearts, right? But they use their own methods. They don't pretend to be refugees and then try to use these complicated ways to get into different countries. They are trained. Their whole life purpose is to move to other countries and establish themselves. Okay, they pretend to be somebody else. It's been going on for decades, since the start of the Cold War. All right, there was a batch of Russian spies who were busted, arrested, put into prison, and then exchanged for some Americans. Remember that? And they were people who were American citizens. They were pretending to be, Brazilians, and they built such incredible legend, okay? And us, if they pretend to be us, it's really easy to determine, because there is counterintelligence in every single country, okay? So I highly doubt that they're using our ways to infiltrate into the countries. They are so skilled in other ways. They're taught. It's their life purpose.
Let me ask the other guys. Ivan, do you know anybody that you think this might be true of? Do you know any Russians who've come to, let's say, Georgia or wherever, who you think they really are pro-Russian or pro-Putin or pro-war against Ukraine, and that they would like to pass themselves off as real immigrants, but that you think they would not be honest? Have you met anybody that you suspect? And Misha, you may need to help him with that.
No. I clearly understand. Thank you so much. So no, I didn't met that persons that support Putin's or support war or something else. But I met pretty honest people that they say that I don't care at all. I don't care about war. I don't care about politics. I care about myself. I don't want to get in army. I don't want to, to get in prison. I don't want to pay some extra taxes and so on. I just care about myself. And that people, they are honest. So I don't think that they are good people. I'm not agree with this position that you should care only about yourself. But they are honest. They understand it, and they tell tell you this with open hearts.
Yeah.
Yes, they're selfish, but they are not liars.
Yeah.
They're not pretending. So
Fair enough. Thank you.
Meta, can I add something, please?
Yeah.
Those spies who target the Western countries, they have been already inside those countries for quite some time. We're seeing that many politicians and media figures in those countries have been influenced already, even before the start of the war started. Okay, we're seeing the high-level positions. This Donald Trump's chief of staff, I think, is under investigation right now. We're seeing what's happening with the political parties and even the leaders of the countries. Orban, the Slovakian one. So those spies have been already inside of those countries. They're, it's a done deal.
Okay, I get it. Thank you. Now we're getting toward the time we've got to quit, but I want to give Charles and Misha the last words about this, or about if you have other points you want to make before we close this conversation. Misha.
Receiving asylum is a long process. It's not 1 month. It can continue for years. And some our beneficiaries, they didn't get an asylum, especially the ones who, for example, entered from one country, European Union, and then moved to another country. They are sent usually to the country of entrance of European Union. So I think they have some methods to determine this type of people, and they probably effectively use it. And I can say that none of the people with whom I stood in touch, none of them planned to move to Canada. They think it's too far.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, thank you. And let's see, Charles, do you have any qualifications to make on anything you've heard people say?
Well, the one thing I will say is that there is not enough psychological assistance being given to people and to their families, and that's extremely important. And Misha knows that I'm willing to, I work together. Konstantin, if you want to, please contact me and we will work together. But it's essential, if people are to be able to function, that they have psychological assistance from this, and that they go through a process of, I won't say de-traumatization, because it's not possible to de-traumatize, but to learn how to cope with it. And that goes with families, and it's also a question of transmission to children and to other people. Sorry.
Charles, thank you so very much. I definitely am making a note of what you said. I understand you don't have to explain it to me. We at Tashkent Breakfast Club, I was seeing a lot of tragedies around me. And the thing is, most of us, we were leading normal lives. I was an executive at a large construction corporation, okay? And most people around me were with regular jobs. And just like that, we were forced to get up and leave now, okay? And then it's like life is over. That's the feeling many people were having. So I started organizing, we organize a lecture every Sunday, because each one of us is an expert in something. We've had very interesting people, but it all started with psychologists, because some were psychologists, and I saw everyone was going through culture shock, through this initial I don't know, PTSD, whatever, and then there were people who actually came up and said, I can help. I can explain what's going on, because first of all, you need to understand, and I can give tools how to cope with it. And then we started doing that, and it's been pretty successful. 2 people have lost it. Okay, we send them to psychiatrists. That's 2 really tragic situations. And then most have been affected mentally. Well, it's been 3 years, we're coping, but I understand what you're saying, and you're right on.
Try to teach people to help one another, and we call this barefoot therapy. So if you're interested, please contact.
but we are way over time. It's been more than thrilling and rewarding and inspiring to hear the courageous stories that you have all told. And I wish that very much, I wish that we can influence public opinion and political leaders so that they recognize what a contribution people are making by doing what you guys have been doing, leaving Russia, refusing to go kill, and trying to settle in other places. So you have my warmest gratitude and appreciation and affection. So thank you very, very much for this, and carry on.